Hello everybody, welcome back to Screen Stars and welcome to another top 10 list. Today's top 10 list is my top 10 favourite films from the 1990s. Now, if you've been following the channel and my top 10 list, you know that I have been trying to answer a question. What is my favourite film of all time? A question I always struggle with because there's just too many. So I have decided to tackle this problem or question. I have already put up on the channel my top 10 films from the 1970s and my top 10 film from the 1980s. And the top two in those lists will go on to the final, if you like. So I'm doing my top 10 90s, and then coming up will be my noughties and beyond top 10 lists. And then I will do an ultimate list with my top two from each of them, hoping to answer the question of what is my favourite film of all time. So, on to this list. Well, the 1990s generated an awful lot of great films, and it was another list I struggled an awful lot to narrow down to 10. Again, when I was making this list and researching, I had well over 30 films on the list. It took me several weeks to whittle it down. Some debates with myself, some debates with other people, etc, etc, but I think I've managed to do it. And don't forget, this is my personal favourite films of this decade, the 1990s. I'm sure your list will be very different, and of course I would love to hear in the comments what your favourite films from this decade is. So on with the list now everybody, and I do hope you enjoy it. So as usual, there are some honourable mentions, and there's three I want to talk about here. Three great films. The first one being Mrs. Doubtfire, one of my favourite comedies of all time. I thought it was an absolutely perfect comedy film, one of Robin Williams' greatest performances, and undeniably a very, very good film. Next is The Green Mile. Very, very close to making the top 10 list, this one. This is one that I can watch anytime, over and over, and that's usually the acid test for me for movies. If I can still watch them today and enjoy them, then for me they've stood the test of time. And The Green Mile is definitely one of those films. A fine performance by Tom Hanks, a great story. Frank Darabont knows how to put Stephen King films on the big screen, and it's a great, great film. And the third one, Pulp Fiction. Now this probably would have made my top 10 when I was younger. I used to watch Pulp Fiction all the time. I still recognise it's a great, great film. It's a film that I haven't watched actually in quite a while. Maybe I need to watch it again to remind myself just how great it is. But it has to make the list because I think Quentin Tarantino made some brilliant films in the 1990s. So coming in at number 10 on my list is Independence Day. Now, this was obviously a box office smash. There are some of you out there that might look at this and think, really, this film? I'm not saying this is a great film, but what I'm saying this is a great popcorn film, and I've got great memories of going to the cinema to see this. In my brand new first car, my Fiat Uno, driving me and my brother to the cinema to watch Independence Day. Loving it. I went back 3 or 4 times to watch it at the cinema. I think it's a perfect box office popcorn film that is still enjoyable to watch today. Yes, we know the sequel wasn't brilliant, but I do think this first one was really entertaining. Yes, it's cheesy. Yes, it's corny, but it made stars obviously out of Will Smith and Jeff Goldblum and Bill Durham. Great in it too. Coming in at number 9 is The Blair Witch Project. For me, this is the film that really put found footage on the map. It's a film that scared me half to death the first time I saw it, and for me it's just it's proof of how you can make a film with no budget and make it really frightening and really effective. And I think this film is perfection at doing that. When you watch this in tandem with the documentary that comes with it on the DVD or the Blu-ray, watch the documentary first if you've never seen this film, and then watch the film after, and I'm telling you, it'll give you chills. Just a superb film, and it needs to be recognised as one of the most influential films ever. Number 8 is Forrest Gump. Got Tom Hanks his second Oscar. I remember being dragged to the cinema to see this at the time with my girlfriend at the time. I didn't want to see it. It didn't interest me at all. This film, it sounded terrible to me, and I remember absolutely loving it. I thought it was cinema perfection to some degree, how they tell the story of this simple guy, Forrest Gump, and this incredible life he leads. And again, I only watched this a couple of weeks ago. I'm hoping to get a classic film review up for this at some point. It's just a wonderful film, really well made, incredible performance by Hank, some great special effects in it, and just a timeless film really that has definitely stood the test of time. Coming in at number 7 is Heat. Now, Heat, I have reviewed this on the channel. Michael Mann, Al Pacino, Robert De Niro, Val Kilmer, the action crime thriller that is just absolutely perfection. What they put on screen here was just slick. It looks beautiful, great action scenes, and some really fantastic performances. And at the time, it was the first time Robert De Niro and Al Pacino had been on screen together, and it just worked. That scene with them in the restaurant stroke cafe when they're talking is just cinema gold. It's just absolutely brilliant watching two actors at the peak of their powers giving it their all, and it's a brilliant film. Coming in at number 6, Silence of the Lambs. A perfect film. I've reviewed this on the channel. I give it a 10 out of 10. I'm fairly sure I gave it a 10 out of 10. Fans of serial killer films, you're not going to get much better than this. Jodie Foster, Anthony Hopkins, both getting their Oscars. Anthony Hopkins portraying Hannibal Lecter was just cinema history, really. You know, this great story being put to screen and done with such care and such perfection. And it's a really affecting film. It's a genuinely frightening film. And it's a gripping film. It's cinema stroke movies at its finest. Silence of the Lambs. Coming in at number 5, an endlessly entertaining film that I can watch over and over again. I have reviewed it on the channel. As good as it gets. Again, 2 Oscar winners here, both deserving of their prize. Jack Nicholson is Melvin, and I think one of the greatest on-screen performances of all time. If you want to know what good acting is, watch Jack Nicholson in this film. That sometimes you watch an actor work and it just, it takes your breath away. There's some scenes in this film with Jack Nicholson and you're just like, wow. Now it proves that acting is an art form when they do it right. This film is entertaining, it's funny, it's emotional, it's moving, and it's just littered with some of the best performances you'll see ever put on screen, and I just love watching this film. Coming in at number 4 is The Matrix. I remember going to the cinema to see this at the time with my friends from the gym it was, and no idea what to expect, and it just blew my mind. Nothing ever had been put on screen like this before. I remember I wasn't a fan of Keanu Reeves at the time. Didn't interest me really, him and his performances, and this film was indescribably good. The effects were just like, how have they done that? Yes, you could argue they kind of went on and made a couple of middling sequels, I suppose. They are watchable. But when you compare to what we got in the first Matrix, it changed cinema for the foreseeable future after this film, and it's brilliant. Coming in at number 3 is Seven, the Brad Pitt, Morgan Freeman, David Fincher serial killer film. Again, it's a 10 out of 10 film. There's no other way of putting it. It's one of those films that it's not a lot of fun to watch, if I'm honest, but it's undeniable quality when you watch it. Made Brad Pitt a megastar, this film. Morgan Freeman was already known, obviously, but again, he was just, his career soared after this film. Really dark film, and I remember the twist at the end of this one that was kept secret from everybody at the time, which just blew my mind as well when I first watched it. The reveal of who the killer is. Fantastic film, perfection, I think. Coming in at number 2 is Terminator 2 Judgement Day. Arguably one of the greatest sequels of all time. How do you improve on Terminator 2 Judgement Day? I think in all areas it does improve on the first one, even though some do still prefer the original Terminator. I just think it's how they handle the Terminator character, the Schwarzenegger character, was really, really good, turning him into the good guy this time. The effects were otherworldly at the time. They just blew everybody away. The action was incredible. It was non-stop action, and it was just an incredible film at the time. I genuinely loved going to the cinema to watch this one. I was really in my Arnie phase when I watched this, and it is still top quality. And coming in at number 1, for me, it has to be The Shawshank Redemption. It has to be. It's timeless, it's endlessly watchable. I can watch this film. I could watch this film once a month and still enjoy it. It's that good. And I remember the first time I saw this film, I stumbled onto it basically. Never heard of it before. I think I probably watched it on TV. And it makes you laugh, it makes you cry, it lifts you up, it drops you like a rock. You go through every single emotion when you watch this film. And I think it's cinema perfection, and I genuinely mean that. I don't think that anybody could find a fault with this one. I genuinely think it's one of the greatest films ever made, and if you've never seen it, oh my goodness, you really do need to watch The Shawshank Redemption. So there you go, guys. That is my top 10 favourite films from the 1990s. Was there any surprises on there for you? Were you surprised by my number 1? Well, if you know me, you probably wouldn't be that surprised, because I just love Shawshank Redemption so much. But again, a really difficult list to do. These top 10 lists, certainly when I do them like this, are usually very difficult to do, because there's just so many great films to choose from. You could easily do a top 20, 30, top 40 list with a lot of these lists. But hey ho, we move on to my next top 10 list that I will be doing in a few weeks, which will be my top 10 favourite films from the noughties. Some great films there, I am sure, and I hopefully will be able to get around to finally answering that question of what is my favourite film of all time. But I hope you enjoyed this list, guys. Thanks very much for watching. Don't forget to leave a like, a comment, and subscribe if you're new, and I'll be back with more content on the channel very soon.